Atalanta, and this is Everyday Witchcraft. Here on Everyday Witchcraft, we explore everything from witchcraft to the occult to the paranormal and the spiritual. Every week we have special guests that have expertise in the subject matter at hand. Welcome to another episode of Everyday Witchcraft. Tonight's special guest is Lisa McSherry. How are you tonight?
I'm great. Thank you very much. It's lovely to be here.
I'm so glad that you're here because we're going to be taking a different outlook on traveling. Would you like to just give a little bit of your background?
Sure. I've been a witch for about 4 decades now. I've been a published author since the turn of the century, which I love to say because it sounds so very, very retro. And in fact, it was just, 20 years ago. And this is actually my 5th published book that's come out. And I'm actually quite excited about it. It's my favorite of all, which I think every author says, but I really mean it.
I loved it.
Thank you. Let's see. So I've been a witch. I have been the leader of a coven since the year 2000 and teaching and training newcomers to witchcraft since then. And in a small group with very mentor focused training. So it's I don't have like hundreds of, people who can say that they were in Jaguar Moon or the Art of Ritual class, but it's been a good group. So my focus is very much on kind of practical witchcraft. I appreciate the people who go into higher realms, if you will. I'm very much about what do you need, how are you going to get it, and how's witchcraft going to help you along the way. So
I love that. I really did love your book, or I really do love your book. I read most of it, and then I was so impressed because not only are you talking about of travel magic, but you kind of give an intro a little bit, like for example, people's perspective of magic are different. So let's just kind of start with that. What is your definition of magic?
Oh, I'm pretty classic I think that magic is when you produce changes around you in accordance with your will. So, I mean, sorry, Starhawk said it first a long time ago. I read it then and went ching, and that's pretty much where I've operated from ever since. But along with that, of course, is a much more elaborate structure of empowerment, of taking control of your environment and seeing how what you wanted to have happen happens. Not always exactly the way you thought it would, but still nonetheless comes out that way. And finding a way to be in the world that's sort of with the natural energies as opposed to trying to change them in different ways or going against them entirely, which I think a lot of modern life puts you in conflict with the natural rhythms, and how to find your way to what can work for you is always an interesting path.
Yes, and also, people have this certain idea on what magic is, and generally it does not go against the laws of nature. And I try to emphasize that a lot, amongst the community, because especially when you get like newcomers, and some are disillusioned in the fact that poof, something's going to happen, but you really have to learn how to harness that natural energy. And how would you explain that, like, to somebody that's a brand new? And by the way, like I said, I really love that you kind of have like an intro to magic and what it is, and you definitely talk about this is my perspective, but that any path can pretty much follow, like this book in particular. But it also helps like the more advanced practitioner too, so it's best of both worlds. But if you were gonna I do have a lot of newcomers that watch this show, and you were going to explain energy and harnessing energy, how would you go about doing that?
I actually think it's very much a matter of figuring out what you want to have happen. Like you got to see the goal. If you can't see the end goal, then you're really not going to be able to manifest it. And now let me have my first of many asterisks. When I talk about seeing, it's because I am a visual person, but there are many ways to see outcomes. It could be something you almost have a tactile sense of. Maybe it's actually a sound, scape that you have that you can imagine, a taste. Our five senses are engaged in various ways in our physicality of our bodies. And yes, while most people are visually oriented, it's not the only way to go around. And that very much comes from, thank you to all my students who are like, I can't see a candle flame when I close my eyes. It's just dark. And, me figuring out, okay, so do you feel warmth? Yeah, I feel warmth. Great. Go with that. That's your focus, on that one, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the first thing is very much figuring out what you want to have happen, and then figuring out the language that's going to get you aligned with the natural energies around it, which is basically the symbology that you might use in a ritual or a spell or the magic that you're going to do. How can you orient your life towards the thing that you want using the world around you? And those symbols, it might be elements, it might be things you draw. It might be a vision board. It's a great one I really like to use, of actually just like cutting out images of the thing that you want and putting them on a board so that you see it frequently and think about it. Because every time you think about it, you're putting a little energy towards it. And this is before you even do a spell. So that's a really nice one. And then the magic itself, powering your intention. Which there's a variety of ways to go about doing that. I'm not going to get into the technique, but there's lots and lots of ways to go about doing that. And then supporting it. So a recent spell I did a couple years ago, my husband and I decided to retire early. And our focus went from supporting our life, and this is COVID time, so it's the middle of the pandemic, it's big lockdown. It was like, how are we going to retire early? Because we didn't want to potentially lose everything the next day, which was, right, pandemic times, that could happen anytime you left the house in a variety of ways. And we were in a place where we could do that. We had done a lot of work towards being able to retire early, but we wanted to do it a lot sooner than we thought we were going to be able to. And we needed to sell our house, and we needed to sell our house for a very specific amount or more. And that amount was what was going to pay for our retirement until such a time as we could actually access, savings that we had built up and such. It's very complicated, sorry, but I said to the universe, and I wrote out on a piece of paper, I wrote a check from real estate broker was the payee to us, and it was the amount that we wanted. And then on the little, the little memo line that's on your check, it said, or more, or better. And I signed it, the universe. Okay, that lived on my altar. There was other energy I put around it, but that was the thing. We had a real estate broker come through to give us a value on the house a week later. He came in $1,000 above the amount that I had put.
Wow.
1,000. I mean, like literally it was like, well, that's the amount. And he said that, and I looked at my
You
husband
said
and
that.
I said, we can retire early now. And he was like, really? I'm like, yep, that was the number. And I showed him the check that I had written out, and he was like, okay, that's a little spooky. We got that amount on the sale. We had one buyer in a fairly hot market, but we just had one buyer, but they wanted no inspection, no contingencies, nothing. And they wanted to close within 30 days, which is about as fast as we possibly could have imagined. So it was like that. I was like, okay, the universe is in favor of our retiring early. let's do it, baby.
Let's do it. That's right. And is that whenever you started traveling a lot, or because I kind of read your background a little bit, and what I thought was really cute was that you were like a busy person, busy doing this and busy doing that and busy doing, and you're always busy. And but you loved what you were doing, but you were just busy all the time. And then finally you were like, okay, hold on a minute. Let's just stop for a second. Is that
Yeah.
kind of what led you into traveling a lot?
Well, I've actually been really fortunate in that I have actually been traveling since I was a little girl. My parents divorced when I was about 6 years old, and my father lived in Philadelphia, my mother in San Francisco. So I was doing cross-country travel from the time, I mean, before my adolescence, basically. My sister and I, by ourselves, I mean, back then it was a lot easier for kids to fly by themselves in a lot of ways. Scarier in a different sense, but we could do it. And then when we spent time with our other families, there was usually around holidays. So there would be camping trips, or my grandparents had an RV. So we would go camping up and down the East Coast in our little RV, us and the cousins. And I went around sort of the coasts of the United States a lot when I was a child. And then as I got older, there's the trips to Mexico occasionally, there's trips to Canada, which is in fact a foreign country. A lot of people forget that, but it is. I didn't do intercontinental travel. I didn't leave the North Americas until about, well, 2007 was my first trip. So that I came late to international travel, and that was a revelation because it was so very, very different from the travel that I had done as a child, and sort of more locally and such. I mean, it was it's very hard to describe, and I know I'm a writer and I should be better at doing this, but it's very hard to describe to someone who hasn't done it, the sense of awe-inspiring discombobulation that comes with looking at an object that is not just older than your country, but about as old as we're aware of humans using tools. Okay, I mean, which what I'm thinking of there very specifically is Newgrange in Ireland, which is 5,000 years old. It's, I believe, older than Stonehenge, not as old as some structures in Turkey that we have been finding. So it's not the oldest thing, but it's old and it's fairly intact and it's astonishing. And so I fell in love with travel. I fell in love with going to places that had history and art and conversations about things that were hundreds of years old, not decades, in so many ways. And I mean, and I do appreciate the freshness of what America brings in a lot of ways, good and bad. I do appreciate all that, but I find more of a resonance with older places, which is one reason why I now live in Europe. Actually, when we retired to Europe so we could get around there closer. But I really feel that the thing about travel is that it doesn't have to just be international trips and big 3-week events and such. I mean, as you know, you just came back from a weekend festival. You left your comfort zone and went to a whole new environment. That's travel, and there's a ton of magic that can support and smooth you whenever you leave the comfort of your home environment, which is actually what travel magic is very much about in a lot of ways. It's because humans have been traveling, leaving their comfortable environments for thousands of years, and pretty much the whole time we've been asking larger beings than us for assistance on the road, not to get robbed, not to have bad weather,
Not to break down.
not to break down, exactly. I mean, not to eat bad food so that we are ill, illness in general, let's avoid that. I mean, like, these themes are as common today when we get on a plane as they were to the Phoenicians who were crossing the Aegean Sea 3,000 years ago, give or take 1,000 years.
And we don't really think about, I mean, when we go on a trip, we think about our past and we think about magic, but not, this is from the, like, before you even leave for the trip, this whole trip becomes magical. And you bring your everyday, living a witch every single day, you bring that into play, and I can't imagine going to these places that are thousands of years old. I mean, I'm aiming to get out there very soon. My son and I are talking about doing a trip actually. The energy that's emitted from those places, that's incredible. I mean, I don't even imagine there's a way to describe that, you know?
It's typical. People better than I have done better at it, and I mostly fall back on awe, astonishing, wow,
Absolutely.
a
Yeah.
lot of wow.
A lot of wows, a lot of
A lot of
wows.
wow.
I was in Mexico years ago and went to the pyramids, and that's how I felt. We actually, just being near the pyramids. I mean, we were right next to. We were guests of the ex-president's son. So we got to embark on like all these little journeys that most people couldn't. And
Mm.
just that energy that was coming from the pyramids themselves, especially being an energy worker. I mean, people that don't even practice magic feel it,
Yeah,
and then when you practice magic and you just, I don't know, it's just like you said, it's just completely different. So
yeah.
there's no way to describe it.
Was it Chichen Itza that you went to down in Mexico? Because there's a couple of,
That I don't recognize that. It's
that one's down by
wherever
Cozumel.
I'm so sorry, I can't remember the name.
Okay,
It started with a C. It started with a C, and I
okay,
honestly don't remember it. This was years ago in the 90s, and
yeah.
I'd have to look back in my books.
Oh, well, back
Um,
then your joy was you could actually climb to the top of the pyramids because they don't let you do that anymore. It's too
oh, they don't?
damaging. So,
Okay. Yeah,
yeah.
because that's what we did. And I'm normally very terrified of heights. I mean, terrified. Like I don't even like to stand on a chair. But
Hmm.
but I had no issues going up. I had no
Hmm.
issues whatsoever.
Hmm.
Okay, it was near Mazatlan. It was near Mazatlan, and I feel like it started with a C or a T, but I honestly can't remember. I'm gonna have to look that up,
Okay.
and I'm gonna have to go back and look at my pictures now and be like, where was I? But
Yeah.
yeah, it was beautiful. You would think I would remember that, remember
Yeah.
the name of it.
But
But it
again,
was,
thousands of
it was
years
incredible.
old, beautiful carvings, a whole culture which literally does not exist anymore in that form. The descendants are around, but not the culture itself. So yeah, absolutely that sense of something bigger than you
Hmm.
was going on. And some people don't like feeling like there's something bigger than them. Okay, fair enough. I don't know that those people are necessarily great magic workers, though, right? Because we're
Right,
always touching something bigger than ourselves. And those of us in a more, witchcraft line, as opposed to other, more formal traditions, are really trying to align ourselves with the energy as opposed to controlling it. And always are good. And to be really clear, I'm very, very, there is no one true way. There's
right.
your way. There are signposts, there are well-worn paths that you can take that will make some things easier. Still your way, still your walk,
Still your
all the way
walk.
through.
Yep,
Yeah, it's
it's your path.
like I'm deaf on anything else, it's like, and I totally understand traditions and I think they are absolutely great, and they have their place. They're just not the only way. And I think most traditional workers people in traditions would agree that there's more than one way to get there, obviously. I mean,
Yeah, I agree completely. Yeah, I absolutely respect the different traditions and going through the process from beginning to end with it and learning, and focusing on the one thing. It's just, everybody's different, and there's multiple paths to lead all to the right place. So yeah, I completely agree. I always stress that too. I'm like, listen, this is, this is not I have this way of thinking and I have this one. I will teach you this, but there's other methods too, to explore. And you mentioned something just a few minutes ago about like people, like somebody might smell something, somebody might taste something, somebody might see something, you know, um, that's something that, we don't really think about. If you are a person that, say, your sense of smell is greater than any other sense, when you're manifesting, maybe take advantage of that particular area, that particular sense. and
Mhm,
and that's how you can start to manifest, because like you said, not everybody's just visual, you know
mhm.
but yeah, that's something to definitely incorporate in. Also, I really loved that you talked about like the footprint that we leave and
Yeah.
how to prevent, from messing anything up, like that's in nature or going against. I really love that too. I mean, it literally is from beginning to end of travel. But yeah, I really like that too. And also immersing yourself like in the culture, and even simple as leaving an offering, because
Mm.
you're leaving an off. Everybody wants to leave an offering for, whatever spiritual thing, but that's a touchy subject too, because you don't think about the fact that's going to be there, that could disrupt nature.
Well, and does the genus loci of the place actually want your gewgaw? Does it really want your gewgaw? I mean, the gewgaw has deep meaning for you. It is a thing that you have thought about bringing to this place that is so special for you, and it's imbued with your energy and it's doing a thing for. I get all of that, and all I could think is this is the equivalent of a total stranger coming into my living room and leaving a gewgaw on my coffee table, which is, did I invite this? No, I just
Nope.
happen to live in a place everyone wants to show up, right? So why are they leaving their trash?
Or
It
taking
is.
something.
Okay, or taking something, which, oh, don't even really get me started on. I mean, I'm already enough of I babble a lot when it comes to leaving offerings. I actually learned something, like I think right as I was writing Travel Magic, because I had thought for years it was okay to leave your hair. Your hair,
Oh,
it degrades. It's a biological offering. I mean, how, it's deeply personal. You could just leave a strand, you're fine. Well, it turns out that hair does not break down nearly as fast as we think it does, particularly for those of us who are, well, I don't know, chemically altering our hair in various
mhm.
ways, dyes, even with the product that you put in your hair and kinds of things, that's not necessarily great for the environment. And the hair doesn't break down very much. So all those people who are tying a branch with a strand of their hair, they could be killing the branch, which was horrifying to me to realize. I was like, oh, I've been doing it wrong all these years. And my basic rule is, fine, you used to do it wrong, don't do it wrong anymore. Go forward and do better. You know better now, go forward and do better. Just leave it. So for me, the message I keep getting from the genus loci is, would you please take some trash with you when you go? Just, take someone else's trash. That would be nice. And I'm like, yeah, after I have a party, my guest is always, my host is always much happier if I help clean up
Right.
rather
That's
than,
absolutely the truth. And
just
that's your
walking out.
offering. You're giving your time. You're giving your energy. That's your offering. And you can acknowledge that while you're there, I'm here, I'm offering this to you. Take some trash. Yeah, I love that too. I love that you put that too. And supporting the locals, supporting,
Okay.
instead of going to the big commercial places, all inclusive, support the locals, because
Yeah.
that's how they make a living. Is if they're there in the touristy areas, that's what they're doing, is they're
Mhm,
supporting their families.
mhm.
All these different little tips that you put in there, some of them, I was like, oh yeah, okay, well, I do that. And some of them I was like, I never thought
Mm.
about that, but I absolutely love that, absolutely love that.
You're
So
welcome. I'm glad. That was the exact point of it. It's why I put it pretty much first thing that I talk about more than anything else. It's almost the most important. Like, can we just do this a little lightly, more lightly? Because, and and I think it's important to keep in mind that uh, travel prior to, we'll say, turn of the century again, my favorite phrase. So travel before the
Certainly.
2000s was, people traveled, but it was far more likely that they were going down the road.
Mhm.
In America, I mean, in Western countries in general, there was a lot of get in your car and go someplace, rent a car and go someplace. Maybe it was fly to a different part of the country and go someplace, a week at Disneyland, that kind of a thing. That was far more common, a lot more, and a lot more going someplace to visit a relative who'd moved farther away. International travel was like a once in a lifetime thing.
Mhm.
It was kind of a big deal. It was like I turned 50, my wife is taking me to Paris for a week. Ooh, and everyone goes, ooh, and you come back and you had the slides and the pictures and you told everyone about it because you were the person in the group who went and did it. Not everyone was going to. So they sort of vicariously lived through your experience. But as travel has gotten a lot less expensive, a lot faster because planes are faster. And I mean, you can literally go from New York to Portugal in 8 hours on a
Wow,
direct flight. 8 hours.
that's
It used to
crazy.
be going from Philadelphia to San Francisco was about 8 hours on the
Hmm.
flight. So like things have changed in a big deal. You can go literally around the world in less than a day. Well, about
That's
a day,
insane. That's
depending on
absolutely
how you.
insane to think about. Even when I was younger, I worked a lot in LA. I lived in Pittsburgh. And even that flight, that was let's see, that was only 15 years ago. Just joking. Um, no, that was many years ago, many, many, many years ago, 30 years ago. Um, and the flight, it took me 5 hours or almost 5 hours to get from Pittsburgh to LA. So
Mm,
had I hung out another 3 hours, I could have been in Portugal.
yeah. Well, nowadays, yeah, you absolutely certainly could. So, I mean, so things have shifted and people bringing offerings, it was just, there was hundreds of visitors at a site, whereas now there are thousands in a month, depending on, what month you're going. I mean, Stonehenge at the summer solstice, they have to practically sell tickets. They can't let everybody who wants to go there because way too many woo people want to spend solstice at Stonehenge, which, that's awesome. It's on my list to do one of these days, but I'm a little daunted by the crowd. So, okay. Um, Newgrange at winter, which is their alignment time, they have a lottery. They've had a lottery in place for about 10 years now. You cannot go see it without a ticket. And they literally take names all year round. And then the beginning of September, they draw 30 names a day and they do it for 3 days. And that's it.
That's
That
insane.
is it.
Oh,
So sites are having, there are sites that are closing down that are starting to actually prevent people from accessing because they're overwhelmed with the number of people who want to go and just see it. Never mind, touch it, climb on it, take a piece away, which all these things. Oh, don't even get me started on shells. I mean, leave the shells, they're needed where they
there's
are.
a reason for the shelves.
There's a
But you
reason for the
just
shells.
don't think about that. I mean, you just really don't. You don't think about, you go down to Florida. I've done that, gone to Florida and picked up some seashells and because you really don't think about that.
Yep.
It's just not a common practice,
Right.
and that's yeah, important.
Well, what can it harm? I take it, it's like, oh yeah, I know, but you're no longer one person and you're not one of hundreds of people. Oh, I'm going off on a diatribe, but I'm sorry. But it kind of goes back to the offerings thing and thinking about the genus loci. And it's a little bit of a weird blind spot that I think us witches, and magic workers have. It's like, yeah, we shouldn't be doing that. It's like, it's not cool. And even if you get a really strong intuition message, whatever, that, this is okay to do this one time, strongly consider whether that's actually your ego talking or actually an external message. I mean, that's
Right.
all I'll say. But sometimes it's a little hard to discern what we're hearing there. And I'm fully on board. I had seashell piles when I was a kid. Stones and shells came back to me from all of the places I went
Yeah,
to. They
it
were
was
part of
your
my
little
memory.
souvenir. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. My little
yeah.
souvenirs. I wasn't, what harm was I? Well, now I'm like, ooh, nope, 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 nope.
Yeah, you just
Pictures.
don't think about that. I mean, I've done it recently, went seashell hunting and things like that. And you pick up little stones, and just like you said, because yeah, after I read that, I was like, ooh, you know, mm.
Yeah.
I need to reconsider some things, where witches were, all about nature and stuff and oh. So it
Yeah.
it literally makes me want to go through my stuff and be like, I'm giving you back. I'm giving you back. I swear.
Not a bad
When I
idea.
read that, I was like, oh, guilt everywhere. You know,
No guilt, no guilt. You didn't know, but now you know
just
better.
change it from now on. Change it from now
Exactly.
on. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, I want to talk about your book a little bit, or a lot actually. Yes, so I made my little notes here because I don't want to miss anything. I always make notes and then I forget to look at them. So, okay, yes. So we talked about keeping the culture green. You have a whole section on correspondences and
Yay.
things you can think about, the symbol of this, and you explain that as well. And I'm gonna assume that if you already have, like, for example, I'm a bone thrower, so I associate animals with particular meanings, and this, what you've done, is sort of a guideline if you haven't practiced. Is that correct? It's kind of like a guideline of all the, because you cover everything, the animals, the plant, I mean, all of it. So I really like that. Is that your thought process with it?
It was very much. And so here's caveat, which I do go into a little bit, which is that the correspondences I put down, I chose literally from doing research as to travel specific correspondences.
Okay.
And that was based on people's writings in a variety of disciplines, history, mythology, stories, lots of folklore kinds of things, where someone had said in this, Hungarian story about meeting the witches that they used rowan tree specifically to deal with the witch. And I'm like, okay, but okay, that's nice, but where's the travel component for that? So if they didn't have both, then I didn't include them. So it is a curated collection of correspondences. It was also very funny for me because while this is my 5th book and I have done beginner books before, I've never actually given correspondences because I feel very, very much like you've got to develop your own language and your own symbology. So I have always been very not going to go there, not going to tell you other than the most general of air is inspiration kinds of things. But for here, because I feel like I am potentially talking to people who don't regularly work with magic, who do just want to do a quick charm on the road or carry a talisman or something like that. I did want to give them just a quick guideline to something that had to some degree been vetted.
Right.
Because some of the
And you
things that are out
researched it.
there,
You
exactly.
researched it. You did all the research. Yeah, and that's what's important. It wasn't just something you said, okay, well, we're going to do this, or I know, like with my students in the bone throwing, I give guidelines, like, well, you could use totem animal. Here's a traditional meaning, blah blah blah. But it's important that if you feel it means something else,
Right.
then that's what you go with. But I do like that, and I love the fact that you researched it so much, for the travel aspects of it.
Mhm.
So that's really good as well.
You. Thank you. Yeah, that was the point of it. And you're absolutely right because like for example, you talk about throwing bones, which I don't really know much about at all. But if my dear friend gifted me, for example, with a bunch of horse knuckle bones, for example, I'm making this up. I'm stringing words together here, but
I guess.
okay, horse teeth or something, and said, this is something you could throw. My throwing of them, because they were coming from horse, would be very, very strongly around travel, movement. What can horse bring me? What is the horse wisdom? And I'm going to associate that with perhaps partnership, carrying loads. But the first one you notice, travel, because horse. I mean, come on, we're gonna
That's
totally
right.
talk about
You got to go
travel
on
now.
horseback.
Yeah, absolutely. Where are you taking me on this one? So, like that would be a blending of two systems, around one kind of idea, but wolf teeth would be completely different. Shark teeth, more travel for shark teeth too, actually. But definitely sort of protection from, like how can I use you to keep me from being thrown to the sharks?
Right. Right.
A real
I just actually
nightmare.
used sharks as an example over the weekend at that festival for protection.
Mm,
It was a protection thing, and we did like a swarm of sharks around us. So yeah, I mean, and everybody is kind of a little bit different, but that is like blending, the two together. But I do like the fact that you did research on the travel aspects of it, because that's also important, and it's a different outlook on it rather than like a totem or a dream meaning or something like that. And I love
right.
anything that has to do with animals, and exploring the different meanings. I'm completely on board with that. So
Sure. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
and another thing that I loved as well is like carrying a deck of cards with you or a pendulum with you. And that's a great way to communicate with spirit or deities or whatever, energy is lingering around.
Mm.
And that's that's not going to hurt anything. It's not going to leave a mark. And I love that as well. What kind of methods do you use? Do you use like the pendulum and the cards, or
I really like the pendulum. That's my favorite. It lives in my little travel kit. I've got a little I've got a variety of tins that I use. Oh gosh, it just occurred to me. I recorded a presentation about my 3 travel kits and it never got published. I should probably publish it. Um, yeah, I have 3 different kinds of trips that I'm taking. One is essentially it's a little metal tin about the size of an Altoids tin. It's not an Altoids tin, it's a little bit longer, but it holds some birthday candles and a copper penny, a needle, a little thread. Sometimes I throw specific colors of thread in. Sometimes I just throw whatever I reach into the bag and toss in. Depends on how intentional I'm being about my trip. Like if I'm traveling for a purpose, I recently traveled to take care of a family member who had some surgery. And so I knew that a lot of my non assisting time, let's put it that way, was going to be about self-care and sort of recuperating so that I could be cheerful the next day when I show up. um, so the colors of thread that I put in were colors that make me feel good, that please me. It tends to be shades of blue, actually, in a lot of ways, but there was some red in there and green. And I actually stitched a sigil for health, not for my person, but for myself, to keep me kind of in good health. And I think it worked, kind of carried me through all the way. But then I also have a little, it used to be a prescription bottle, and I, took the label off and I've actually painted it different colors on the outside, which just makes it so you can't quite see what's on the inside. I wanted to keep it a little hidden. But I also wanted to make it very clear that this was not prescriptions, this was not pills in here, so that, a customs official would not feel like I was trying to steal or sneak something through. But that's also the right size for holding, a birthday candle, a little bit of needle and thread. I love needles when traveling because they're very little, they're steel. Not a lot in the world that's steel, which means you can magnetize it if you want to. There's alignment things you can do, travel, it can act like a compass for various kinds of workings, which I talk about in my book. a little bit of thread, needle and thread. No one thinks anything of it. It doesn't come across as witchy. They just think it's your mending kit. And in fact, the mending kit that hotels sometimes give you can be a really great thing to filch to use in the future travels I offer to people. And then I have my third one is actually just a little, it's a fabric covered box. And that for years actually used to hold my sewing needles, bobbins, and scissors. And that one, because it does hold it, can carry my scissors, which I do like to carry sometimes for some kinds of trips. And that's a really good way to, how do I want to put this? If you feel like you've gotten something icky attached to you, your scissors can cut that connection
cord.
right off.
Absolutely.
Very simply, without a lot of fanfare. And I'm a real big one for when I travel, I don't want to try and make anything elaborate happen because I'm not in my home environment. I'm not going to carry my altar's worth of implements,
Yeah.
when I travel. So it's always has this sense of on the fly, or never haphazard, but quickly constructed.
Right.
And so, having just a few key things that you always carry, they become like your ritual tools. They're the ones you rely on all the time. And okay, maybe the first time it feels a little strange. By the third time, you're getting the hang of it,
You're bonding
and
with them.
you're bonding with them. Exactly. And they know what their job is. You tell them what their job is. This is travel with you and keep you safe.
What
And
do
it's
you
a
recommend as far as, okay, somebody just like me, all right, I'm gonna have a little travel kit. I mean, I have a travel altar, but my travel altar has a lot of stuff in it. If I was going, and that's something that I take to festivals and things like that. It's small, everything is very tiny, but I know that it's still it's not simple. So if you were gonna advise me, okay, what should I take and like what the different uses would be for that? How versatile is it?
Well, I'm pretty classic in my magical background. So for me, it's the four elements. Have a birthday candle, there's your fire. You can usually get some matches or bum a lighter from somebody. So don't carry a matches or a lighter. A lot of airlines won't let you for safety reasons. So don't even try to do it. A little lighter, they'll let you get away with because they think you're a smoker. So, that can be a way to do it, but I wouldn't carry it in the kit because you want to keep your kit kind of small. I also, by the way, I like to have a kit that I can keep on me. So it's in my backpack when I travel. So I don't check my magical implements. They stay with me the whole way through. As much because I don't know when my bag is going to get lost, which it never has. Thank you very much. Universe, you can keep coming for me. I want to be able to pull out my kit to do some magic on the fly, right? Anyway, going back, I really like a candle. You can usually get a little bit of salt at a concession stand. If that doesn't feel good to you for whatever reason, a copper penny does fantastically for the element of earth. It's copper, it's round, it's a pentacle in little miniature form. It's great, Some people like to use a dime or a quarter as well, a little shiny kind of thing, which I think is just great. For air, you could have a feather, tiny little feather, which is also really nice because it can be used to brush your aura. Right. And brush away any negative energy really, really well. And it squishes down into a little bit of nothing. And then water, well, we can usually get water from anywhere, but to have a particular container, a little thumb,
Thimble?
what do you call it? A thimble. Thank you.
Thimble. That's that's brilliant.
There's your cup.
There's your cup.
And anyone looking at it is just going to be like, okay, I don't know why this person's carrying a birthday candle, but who cares?
Yeah, they're not going to care.
And all the rest of it is just your sewing kit, and then you just get, so that's like the most basic that you can get down to. And then you add on to it from there. You know, you're driving places, so having a fairly small travel kit, like one that fits in a shoebox, is great, because you can have all the stuff you want in that, and you can be really focused on whatever you might need for this next event. You know, like you can throw in your tarot cards real easy. I wish I could travel with my tarot cards so many times, but it's more weight and more space than I really want to give up.
Yeah, not always practical. And the pendulum is a perfect size. It's, yeah. Do you ever, just like you're like, talking about the needle and thread, and I don't know the rules for the airlines. They don't give you issues with the needle and thread, or it's
The
just
needle is
small
just,
to sewing
yeah,
kits.
needle's too small. It's an inch and a half at the most. I don't even know what that is, just, yeah. And the same for the scissors. The length of the scissors is about inch and a half.
Those little
Because
baby scissors,
the
those little
little
teeny
baby
tiny.
scissors.
Oh
Yep,
yeah, you do get those in hotels. The little clippy, in the hotel kits. Yeah,
yep,
that's brilliant. That's
yep.
brilliant.
So, and they don't need to do much. Again, a lot
Mm-mm.
of what we're working with is the symbols. You
Great.
know, I carry my scissors because I actually do cut thread, and it's
Mhm.
easier with the scissors, frankly, than my teeth. Or
Yeah,
trying to use
it's better
the
for you.
knife that comes with room service. You know, but then, using your environment, and I talk about this a little bit, you can usually get a little bit of dirt from plants.
Hmm.
There's some planting somewhere, it's a house plant, it's, the garden of the place that you're staying in. You can usually get a little bit of dirt there.
And you don't
Salt,
need much. You
vinegars,
just need a little pinch,
don't need
little
much, you need
tiny
a little
pinch.
pinch. Yeah,
Yeah.
in fact, don't be depredatious about it. Of course, you don't need a scoop, Um, and I'm a big fan, most hotels, for example, won't let you burn things.
Hmm.
Okay, so the birthday candle, first of all, is very unobtrusive. It is live flame. Okay, so what's your alternative for, instead of a candle? What can you use for flame? And for that, frankly, pictures.
Oh, yeah.
Pull up a picture of a flame on your camera, stick it
And
off
you
to the
can.
side. Again, it's just the image we want. It's the
Hmm.
calling in and the acknowledgement of that. If I'm staying in a house or a place that doesn't care about candles, which I know because they're burning candles, then my birthday candle goes really well for all of that.
Right.
It's also true, all of the elements are present within ourselves.
Right. It's all
So,
representative. You could even take, excuse me, you could take, if you had to, that birthday candle, you make it a white one, and then it can, of course, represent any of the colors. You could divide it up, you could cut it up, and take your thread, because you were talking about carrying different colors of thread, and wrap around the elemental correspondences for the different colors, and then you're
yep,
good.
yep.
I would have never thought about that
Okay.
had I not read your book.
It's fun. I mean, this is the fun part of magic, is the crafty part, is the,
Hmm.
coming up with something on a fly. I mean, my best magic, a lot, actually, one of the reasons I love this book is because, scattered through are these little anecdotes from my travels, things that I did or saw or created or and all that. And so for the first time, this is actually quite a personal book for me, because y'all actually get to see how I do magic. Literally, I mean, I spent the first part of the book talking about how to do magic, and then you get to read about these various scenarios where I
Hmm.
did magic and things happened. Now, of course, what's not included, because it's not as interesting to some degree, are all the times I tried to do magic and it's
It did.
completely,
That's not as fun.
it's not as fun, and
That's
they're
not
not
as
as
fun.
illustrative, but except in the sense that, yeah, all witches fail. You don't always get what you want. There are plenty of times when, despite my best efforts, um, that trip went way off the rails. In a whole variety of ways. I mean, I have those stories too. But mostly they just gave me more opportunities to figure out how to perhaps manage this a little bit better the next time. And
Absolutely.
I have to say, deeply blessed and fortunate that one of my patron deities, if you will, is Mercury, god of travel. So I have a ready and handy and willing to listen source available to me at all times, and in a way that some people don't. I mean, if you don't have a god of travel in your pocket, as it were, you got to set up that resonance. And I don't need to set up that resonance. So some things can be really, really quick, when it comes down to it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And like I said, I love the fact that you start before the trip, planning the magic before the trip. People, we do carry things like that might protect us, like a talisman or something like that. But you think outside the box. Like I put a little list, you got the affirmations of what that trip is going to focus on or be about. You talk about the images, and carrying images with you. But you also like the bath salts, like taking a nice ritual bath. If you immerse yourself into the culture, you can collect things locally to make that ritual bath. It doesn't have to be, well, I have lavender from at home or I have rose petals from at home. It could be flowers of the area. And then, like you said, get salt. You can actually create all these different things and continue living your magical life.
Mhm, mhm. Most absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that's the fun of it, is taking our magic with us, having more magic with us when we go back,
Mhm.
to enrich our home environment and make it more comfortable. And it's all, but it's always difficult meeting the other. And anytime we leave our home environment, we're meeting the other. So, how to have a better experience all the way through. I mean, one of my favorite things to do for years now is I actually create a book before we go on a trip. We do shorter trips now, so I'm not really doing the books anymore. But I remember when we did our honeymoon 12 years ago, is that we went to Ireland, and I literally had a book, and there was, you know, images from all of our tickets and reservations and little maps of places we were going to go, because we went to a lot of standing stones, which back then you didn't necessarily have a phone in your pocket, and you definitely didn't really have Google Maps everywhere, not in Europe in particular. So our directions were things like go 3 miles out of this town, look for the goat track on the right side past the break in the hedge, make sure to ask the farmer for permission, and then
That's awesome.
when you're back to the hedge, go north. Like literally it was treasure hunting directions, and we didn't find
Hmm.
all the places. But I had pictures of like little geomaps and things like that. And there were times I was showing a farmer, well, we're trying to get over here, and he'd be like, no, 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 Lassie, no, 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 yeah, you got around here, you just give me a whole different, and I would write on my map, draw it in. I'd be like, okay, got it. And that was in English. So
And then you have like a memento. You
and
don't
then
have to take anything from someplace, but you've got this little book that you've created, like a little scrapbook.
exactly. Exactly.
That's
And when I
beautiful.
came back, I pasted things in. There were, I left the backs of pages empty, and I would journal about things and draw and, paste in things from mementos from the day. And, so that, along with our photo albums, our electronic photo albums, is a rich document of a journey. And I had everything in my hands, but there was a lot of magic that went into making that book, because this is what we want to have happen. This is the experience we want to create. And we collaborated on creating, sorry for the alliteration, this journey together, which was our first trip as a married couple. And
Mhm.
it was something we both wanted to do and see. And my husband had ideas about going to places that I never would have considered, and it was just wonderful putting it together. So yeah, and there's an example of like how you can sort of pre-create
Mhm.
magic to carry you through on your eventful trip.
Exactly. And let's just say you don't have to travel internationally to use this book, because all over the US, I've done, a lot of traveling in the US, and it's different. Different areas and regions are completely different. You still have to say, okay, what is the culture over here? What is the usual? Because yeah, it's you don't have to travel internationally to use this book. And I love, okay, so we have that we talk about how to keep things green. We have a bunch of correspondence, trying to list everything that's in there, because I mean this is like a travel companion, literally in your pocket. You even put in there like what to pack, kind of mention, hey, you need to kind of shrink everything and make it smaller if you plan on like the capsule wardrobe. I just learned how to do those, by the way, recently. I'm so excited
Aren't they
about that.
great? Aren't
I
they
love doing.
great?
Yes,
Yeah. It's,
it changes everything learning how to do that.
mhm.
But that's what I'm saying, it's not just the magic advice, it's all of the advice for travel. But then it goes back to that magical advice and magical travel. And I love that. What do you think is like, how would you describe this book to, like, in general? Give us all the information that you've got there.
The elevator pitch, as it were.
Yeah, the elevator pitch. There you go.
This is a book for making every single time you step out of your home environment more comfortable and more interesting and more magical, because every time we leave our home, we are traveling. And we're traveling, technically we are traveling sitting at our computers, looking at pictures of where we're going to go. I mean, that was a fantastic thing that happened during the pandemic, right? Is all these museums opened up their collections so you could, and did like virtual walkthroughs, so you could actually visit the Louvre even without leaving your home in Denver, Colorado. I mean, just like you can explore the world, and so many places are doing that now. Archaeologists are kind of going off on a tangent, sorry, but archaeologists are basically 3D filming their sites. So you can go to active sites and see how they are uncovering walls and
Wow.
remnants and such, not quite live, but really, really close. And there's some seriously exciting things going on in Egypt and Greece. Uh,
That is very cool. I didn't know that you could do that.
yeah,
So,
the technology, it's a two-edged sword, right? I mean, like,
mhm.
we're just rushing ahead into, danger. But at the same time, there are these incredible things happening, and we can celebrate those incredible things. So this is a book going back to help you go on those journeys and have a much more positive experience than you might have otherwise.
And
And
lets
no
you
one else
think.
has written magic, travel
I
magic before.
I know, that's what I'm saying. It's just something you don't really think about. Then when you think about it, you're like, wow, why has nobody figured? Yeah, nobody's done this before. So
Yep.
I absolutely love it. I love every part of it. And I want to thank you for coming on here. Is there any final words you'd like to say?
No, but you can always find me at my home on the web, which is the very easy to remember McSherry.com. I have a number of projects, they all link there. And if I'm going to be out and about talking or doing a presentation, you can always find out about it there.
Word out. Okay. And do you have some? Well, I say let's get this book out there and let's promote it. And like you said, nobody else has ever, has done anything on travel magic. So I will put your link up during the show. And I want to thank you again for coming on here. Blessed be.
Thank you so much, and blessed be Atalanta.